The emergency transmission crackled through space, its desperate signal bouncing off asteroids and cosmic debris before finally reaching the outer edges of the Sol system. Commander Zephic of the Vortanian Mining Consortium clutched his communication device with trembling claws, his bioluminescent patches flickering erratically in distress. "This is Mining Station Kepler 7 to any nearby vessels," his voice carried the weight of impending doom. "We have suffered catastrophic equipment failure. Our primary life support systems are failing, and we have approximately 72 hours before total atmospheric collapse. We are a civilian operation with 43 souls aboard. Please, if anyone receives this transmission, we desperately need assistance." What Commander Zephic didn't know was that his distress call had been picked up by Lieutenant Sarah Chin aboard the human patrol vessel Defiant. She sat in the communications bay, her eyes widening as the universal translator processed the alien language into clear English. The desperation in the voice was unmistakable, transcending species barriers. "Captain Morrison to the bridge immediately," she called through the ship's intercom, her training kicking in despite the unprecedented nature of the situation. This was humanity's first contact with an alien species, and it was happening during a crisis. Captain Morrison arrived within minutes, his weathered face grave as he listened to the recording. The Defiant was a small reconnaissance ship, part of humanity's expanding patrol network as they ventured further into space. They were equipped for exploration and light defense, not rescue operations of this magnitude. "Ma'am, our scanners show their location is approximately 18 hours away at maximum burn," reported Navigation Officer Torres. "But, Captain, we don't have the equipment for a large-scale rescue operation. Our ship can maybe accommodate 10 additional people in emergency conditions." Morrison studied the tactical display, his mind racing through possibilities. 43 lives hung in the balance, and first contact protocols hadn't exactly prepared them for this scenario. The rule book said to report back to Earth Command and wait for instructions. But 72 hours minus travel time left precious little room for bureaucratic delays. Send a priority alpha transmission to Earth Command, Morrison decided. Include all sensor data about the alien vessel and their distress call. Then, plot a course for their location and prepare for maximum burn. "Sir, shouldn't we wait for orders from command?" Torres asked, though her tone suggested she already knew what the captain would say. "Navigation, those are living beings facing death in the vacuum of space. I don't care if they're green, purple, or made of crystalline structures. When someone calls for help, humans answer. We'll deal with the consequences later." The Defiant changed course, its engines burning bright against the star-filled backdrop of space. Behind them, their transmission raced toward Earth at the speed of light, carrying news that would change everything. On Earth, Admiral Helena Vasquez was enjoying a rare quiet morning when the priority transmission arrived at Fleet Command. The coffee in her cup grew cold as she read the report 3 times, each reading making the situation more real and more impossible. "Get me the Secretary General of the United Earth Council," she ordered her aide. "And contact Fleet Admiral Chen. Tell him to prepare for immediate deployment. Full military escort." "Ma'am, what classification should I assign to this operation?" the aide asked, his hands poised over the communication console. Vasquez stared at the tactical display showing the location of humanity's first contact with alien life. A species calling for help, and one of their ships already en route to assist. Classification Omega. And activate the emergency fleet protocol. Every available ship in the solar system is to prepare for immediate departure. "Admiral, that's the entire fleet. Nearly 400 ships." "Correct. If we're going to make first contact, we're going to do it right. Those aliens called for help, and, by God, they're going to get it." Within hours, shipyards across the solar system erupted into activity. The massive dreadnought Terran Pride, fresh from its refit, powered up its engines alongside sleek destroyers, heavy cruisers, and support vessels. Medical ships, engineering vessels, and humanitarian aid craft joined the growing armada. News of the alien distress call spread through Fleet Command like wildfire. Veterans who had spent decades patrolling the outer system suddenly found themselves part of humanity's most important mission. Fresh Academy graduates received orders they had never dreamed possible. Captain Elizabeth Santos of the heavy cruiser Indomitable stood on her bridge watching the fleet assemble. Ships of every class and configuration formed up in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the light of Sol. "Ma'am, we have confirmation from all vessels," reported her communications officer. "The fleet is ready to depart." Signal the flagship. The human fleet stands ready to render aid. Admiral Vasquez reviewed the final manifest from her command ship, the massive dreadnought Humanity's Reach. 412 ships carrying the best of human technology, medicine, and engineering expertise. But, more than that, they carried something uniquely human, the absolute refusal to let others suffer when help was possible. All ships, this is Admiral Vasquez. Today we make first contact with an alien species. They called for help, and we answered. That's what humans do. That's who we are. Whether they know it or not, those 43 souls are about to learn that when humans hear a cry for help, we don't send a ship. We send everything we have. The order went out across the fleet, and 400 ships engaged their jump drive simultaneously. Space rippled and, folded as the largest fleet in human history disappeared into hyperspace, racing toward a small mining station where strangers waited in the dark. Commander Zephic felt his hope fading as the hours ticked by. His distress call had been broadcasting for nearly a day with no response. The atmospheric processors were failing faster than expected, and the acrid smell of burning circuits filled the station's corridors. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission," his communications officer announced, her voice barely containing her excitement. "Patch it through." The voice that came through their speakers was unlike any they had heard before, the universal translator struggling with the alien syntax and cadence. "Mining Station Kepler-7, this is Captain Morrison of the human vessel Defiant. We received your distress call and are en route to your location. Hold tight. Help is coming." Zephic's bioluminescent patches blazed with sudden hope. "Humans? I've never heard of this species. Can you provide assistance with our life support systems?" There was a pause before Morrison's voice returned, carrying a strange quality that the translator marked as amusement. "Station Kepler-7, you asked for help. We don't do anything halfway. Sit tight, friends. You're about to see what humans call a proper rescue operation." The first sign that something extraordinary was approaching came from the Vortanian station's long-range sensors. Chief Engineer Velox stared at his displays in growing confusion, his scaled hands dancing across the controls as he tried to make sense of the readings. "Commander Zephic, you need to see this," Velox called out, his voice tight with disbelief. "I'm detecting massive energy signatures approaching our position. Multiple contacts." Zephic rushed to the engineering station, his hopes rising. Perhaps these humans had brought a rescue fleet. Maybe 3 or 4 ships to help evacuate his people and repair their systems. "How many vessels, Chief?" Velox recalibrated his sensors, certain there had to be an error. The numbers couldn't be right. "Sir, I'm reading, this can't be accurate. I'm showing over 400 distinct energy signatures." 400? Zephic's bioluminescent patches dimmed in confusion. "That's impossible. No species travels with fleets that large for rescue operations. Check your equipment." "I've run diagnostics 3 times, Commander. The readings are accurate." Velox pulled up the tactical display, and both officers fell silent. The screen showed a massive formation of ships approaching at incredible speed, their energy signatures unlike anything in Vortanian databases. "Open a channel to the lead human vessel," Zephic ordered, his voice barely steady. Captain Morrison's face appeared on their communication screen, his features alien but somehow reassuring. Behind him, the bridge of his ship buzzed with activity. "Captain Morrison, our sensors are detecting a large number of vessels approaching. Can you confirm your fleet size?" Morrison glanced at something off-screen, then looked back with what appeared to be a slight smile. "Station Kepler-7, this is accurate. We have 412 ships en route to your location." The silence on the Vortanian bridge was deafening. Medical Officer Lyra, who had been checking on the injured crew members, stopped mid-stride. Communications Officer Taya's mandibles clicked involuntarily, a sign of extreme shock among her species. "Captain, with respect, did you say 400 ships?" Zephic asked carefully, wondering if the translation systems were malfunctioning. "That's correct, Commander. When humans receive a distress call, we respond appropriately. You have 43 souls in danger. We brought everything we have." Engineer Velox collapsed into his chair, his breathing apparatus working overtime. In Vortanian culture, rescue operations were typically handled by single vessels or small specialized teams. The idea of mobilizing an entire fleet for a mining station rescue was beyond comprehension. But, Captain, surely a single ship could evacuate our crew. Why bring such a massive force? Morrison's expression grew serious. Commander, you're not just facing evacuation. Your station needs repairs, your people need medical attention, and we don't know what caused your initial system failures. We brought medical ships, engineering vessels, supply craft, defensive escorts, and emergency habitats. When someone calls for help, humans show up prepared for anything. The reality of the situation began to sink in across the Vortanian station. These unknown humans had received a simple distress call and responded by mobilizing what appeared to be their entire space fleet. 4 strangers. 4 aliens they had never met. Commander, whispered Medical Officer Lyra, their fleet is larger than our entire planetary defense force. Aboard the human flagship Humanity's Reach, Admiral Vasquez studied the approaching mining station through her tactical displays. The Vortanian vessel was clearly a civilian operation, its hull scarred by years of asteroid mining operations. Sensor readings confirmed the dire state of their life support systems. Admiral, we're receiving telemetry from the station, reported Commander Hayes. Their atmospheric processors are failing faster than anticipated. They have maybe 30 hours of breathable air remaining. Signal the engineering fleet. I want damage control teams ready for immediate deployment. Medical ships are to prepare for potential toxic exposure treatments. And, get me a direct line to their commanding officer. When Admiral Vasquez appeared on the Vortanian communication screen, the effect was immediate. Her uniform bore more decorations than most Vortanian military commanders saw in a lifetime, and her bearing spoke of absolute authority. Commander Zephic, I am Admiral Helena Vasquez of the Human Fleet. We understand you have 43 souls in immediate danger. Please transmit your station schematics and crew medical profiles. We'll have you stabilized within the hour. Zephic struggled to process what he was seeing. The human fleet had arrived with military precision, yet their mission was purely humanitarian. Their admiral was personally overseeing a rescue operation for a small mining station crew. Admiral, I must ask, why? We are strangers to your species. Why send such a massive response to our simple request for aid? Vasquez paused, considering her words carefully. This was humanity's first contact with alien life, and her response would set the tone for all future relations. Commander, where humans come from, there's an old saying, no one gets left behind. It doesn't matter if you're human, Vortanian, or something we've never encountered before. When someone needs help, especially when lives are at stake, humans respond with everything we have. That's just who we are. The concept was so foreign to Vortanian thinking that their translation systems struggled with the cultural context. In their society, aid was calculated, measured, provided in exact proportion to political and economic relationships. The idea of unlimited assistance based on simple need was revolutionary. Engineering teams are launching now, reported Captain Santos from the Indomitable. Medical ships Mercy and Compassion are moving into support positions. Supply vessels are preparing emergency atmospheric processors. Through the viewports of their failing station, the Vortanian crew watched in awe as human ships surrounded them in a protective formation. Sleek fighters took up patrol positions while massive support vessels maneuvered with surprising grace. The sight was overwhelming. Commander, Engineer Velox called out, his voice filled with wonder, I'm detecting multiple ships launching smaller craft. Dozens of them. They're all coming here. Zephic watched his tactical display fill with approaching human vessels. Engineering ships, medical craft, supply transports, and armed escorts, all converging on their small station with military precision. Admiral Vasquez, your response is unprecedented. In our culture, such massive aid would require formal treaties, economic agreements, political negotiations. The Admiral's voice carried a warmth that transcended species barriers. Commander, sometimes the most important things can't be negotiated or calculated. Sometimes you just do what's right because it's right. Your people are in danger, and that's all we needed to know. As the first human engineering craft docked with the Vortanian station, Chief Engineer Velox felt tears forming in his large eyes. Through his failing atmospheric systems, he could hear the sound of human tools already working to restore life support. These strangers had traveled across space with a fleet that could conquer worlds, all to save 43 aliens they had never met. Kepler 7, this is Engineering Team Alpha, came a new voice through the communications system. "We've identified your primary system failures. Give us 6 hours, and you'll have full life support restoration plus improved efficiency ratings. We brought some upgrades." Zephyk slumped in his command chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of human compassion. "Admiral, how can we ever repay such kindness?" "No repayment necessary, Commander. Just, when you encounter someone else who needs help someday, remember what you learned here. Pass it forward." The Vortanian commander looked around his station, now filled with the sounds of human engineers working to save lives that weren't even their own species. In that moment, he realized he wasn't just witnessing a rescue operation. He was seeing the birth of a friendship that would echo across the galaxy. The human engineering teams worked with an efficiency that astounded the Vortanian crew. Within 2 hours, the station's atmosphere had stabilized, and the acrid smell of burning circuits was replaced by the clean scent of properly filtered air. Chief Engineer Velox followed the human teams around like an eager student, marveling at their innovative solutions. "Your atmospheric processors were designed for efficiency, but not redundancy," explained human engineer First Class Maria Rodriguez as she installed a secondary backup system. "We've added 3 independent backup systems and upgraded your primary processors with our latest filtration technology. You'll have cleaner air than most luxury liners now." Velox watched in amazement as Rodriguez's team installed equipment that was clearly more advanced than anything the Vortanians possessed. "These upgrades, they must be worth more than our entire station. Why are you giving them to us?" Rodriguez paused in her work, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Because you needed them. Besides, what good is advanced technology if you don't share it? We humans learned long ago that everyone benefits when we help each other advance." In the station's medical bay, Dr. Sarah Kim from the hospital ship Mercy was treating crew members who had suffered from toxic exposure during the system failures. Her Vortanian patients watched in fascination as she used medical techniques they had never encountered. "Your physiological structure is fascinating," Dr. Kim explained to Medical Officer Lyra. "Your respiratory system is more efficient than ours in many ways. We should compare notes. There's a lot we could learn from each other." Lyra's bioluminescent patches flickered with excitement. In Vortanian culture, medical knowledge was closely guarded, shared only through formal research agreements that took years to negotiate. The casual offer of knowledge exchange was revolutionary. "You would share your medical advances with us? Just like that?" "Of course. Medical knowledge isn't something to hoard. Every species we've encountered has taught us something new about healing. Your people have unique adaptive mechanisms that could help us develop better treatments for respiratory diseases." On the bridge, Commander Zephyk found himself in conversation with Admiral Vasquez, who had personally shuttled over to meet the Vortanian crew. Her presence on his small mining station was the equivalent of a sector governor personally visiting a remote outpost. "Admiral, I'm curious about your chain of command. How did you get authorization to deploy such a massive fleet for our rescue?" Vasquez smiled. "I didn't ask for authorization, Commander. When we received your distress call, I gave the order to mobilize everything we had. I'll handle the paperwork later." You deployed your entire fleet without orders? Won't your superiors be angry?" "Probably. They'll lecture me about proper protocols and chain of command. But no one will question the decision itself. Every human in our government understands that some things are more important than bureaucracy." The concept was staggering to Zephyk. In Vortanian society, such an unauthorized deployment would result in court-martial and exile. Yet this human admiral spoke of it as if it were the most natural thing in the universe. Communications Officer Taya approached with a data tablet, her mandibles clicking softly with anxiety. "Commander, we're receiving transmissions from the consortium. They want a full report on the human presence here." Admiral Vasquez raised an eyebrow. "Is that a problem? We can provide them with our complete records of this operation." "Admiral, the consortium leadership, they may not understand your motivations. In our culture, such massive military deployments usually indicate territorial expansion or resource acquisition." The admiral's expression grew serious. "Commander, would you like me to speak with your leadership directly? I want to make our intentions absolutely clear." Within the hour, the communication screen in the station's main conference room displayed the stern faces of 3 consortium directors. Their elaborate headdresses and formal robes marked them as high-ranking officials, and their expressions showed deep suspicion. "I am Director Kilax of the Mining Consortium," the central figure announced. "We demand an explanation for this massive human military presence in our territorial space." Admiral Vasquez stepped forward, her bearing respectful but confident. "Director Kilax, I am Admiral Helena Vasquez. We received a distress call from this station and responded with humanitarian aid. Our intentions are purely peaceful." "Humanitarian aid?" Director Zelfin, an elderly Vortanian with scarred scales, leaned forward. "You deploy over 400 warships for humanitarian aid?" "Yes, Director. When lives are at stake, humans respond with everything available. We brought medical ships, engineering vessels, supply craft, and defensive escorts to ensure the safety of everyone involved." Director Melara, the youngest of the three, studied readings on her data tablet. "Our sensors indicate your fleet carries enough firepower to devastate multiple star systems. Why should we believe this is merely a rescue operation?" The question hung in the air, and Zethik felt the tension building. If the directors perceived the humans as a military threat, this first contact could turn into a diplomatic disaster. Admiral Vasquez nodded thoughtfully. "Director, that's a fair question. Yes, our fleet is heavily armed. But I want you to consider something. We detected your distress call 18 hours ago. In that time, we mobilized our entire fleet, traveled across space, and are currently conducting extensive repairs and upgrades to this station. All at our own expense, with no request for payment or territorial concessions. What are you asking for in return?" Director Kilax asked suspiciously. "Nothing." The simple response clearly shocked the directors. They exchanged glances, their translation devices apparently struggling with the concept. "Nothing?" Director Melara repeated. "You deploy massive resources and ask for nothing in return?" "That's correct. Commander Zethik asked for help. We provided it. That's the entire transaction." Director Zelfin leaned back in his chair, his scarred features thoughtful. "In our experience, species with such military capability use it for expansion and conquest. Why should humans be different?" Admiral Vasquez gestured toward the viewport, where human ships continued their work around the station. "Directors, look at what our ships are doing. Our engineers are upgrading your technology. Our medical teams are treating your injured. Our supply ships are restocking your consumables. Does that look like conquest to you?" "It looks like..." Director Melara paused, searching for words. "It looks like preparation for long-term occupation. It looks like making sure you're safe and well-equipped. When humans help someone, we do it properly. We're not upgrading your systems so we can take them over. We're upgrading them so you'll never face this crisis again." Commander Zethik stepped forward. "Directors, I've been observing these humans for several hours now. They're not behaving like conquerors. They're behaving like family members who heard someone was in trouble." The comparison clearly resonated with the directors. Family obligations were sacred in Vortanian culture, and the idea of treating strangers with familial concern was both touching and baffling. "Admiral," Director Kilax said slowly, "your species approaches aid and assistance in ways we've never encountered." "Are all humans like this?" "Yes, Director. It's fundamental to who we are. We have a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. We believe everyone in the universe is part of the same village." Director Zelfin's scarred features softened slightly. "Your philosophy is unusual. Most species we've encountered prioritize their own interests above all else." "Most humans do prioritize their own interests," Admiral Vasquez admitted. "But we've learned that helping others ultimately helps ourselves. A universe where everyone looks out for each other is a safer, more prosperous place for everyone." As the conversation continued, the Vortanian directors found themselves confronting a completely new paradigm. These humans possessed overwhelming military power, yet used it to protect and assist others. They had advanced technology, yet shared it freely. They had responded to a simple distress call with resources that could reshape star systems. "Admiral," Director Melara finally said, "we would like to discuss establishing formal relations with your species. Your approach to interstellar relations is intriguing. We would welcome such discussions, Director. But first,
let's finish helping your people. Diplomacy can wait until everyone is safe.
The transmission ended, leaving the three directors staring at blank screens and contemplating first contact with a species that had just redefined everything they thought they knew about power, generosity, and interstellar relations. Word of the human rescue operation spread through Vortanian space like wildfire. Within days, mining stations, trade vessels, and planetary outposts throughout the sector buzzed with incredible stories of aliens who had mobilized an armada to save 43 strangers. The tale grew in the telling, but the core facts remained the same. Humans had responded to a simple distress call with overwhelming generosity. Captain Thranks of the cargo hauler Void Dancer was in the middle of a routine supply run when his communications officer burst onto the bridge with barely contained excitement.
Captain, you have to hear this transmission from Kepler-7.
They're claiming that an unknown alien species showed up with over 400 ships just to repair their life support systems.
Thranks's tentacles writhed with amusement. 400 ships? For a mining station rescue? Someone's been sampling the fermented algae again.
No sir, I've confirmed it with 3 other stations. They all corroborate the story. These humans apparently brought medical ships, engineering fleets, supply vessels, and military escorts.
All for free.
The humor drained from Thranks's expression.
Free? No species provides aid without expecting something in return. What's the catch?
That's just it, Captain.
According to every report, there is no catch.
They fixed the station, upgraded their systems, provided medical treatment, and asked for nothing. Similar conversations were taking place across Vortanian space as the news spread. On the agricultural world of Verdant, Planetary Governor Xylos called an emergency session of his council to discuss the implications. Councilors, we must consider what this means for our region, Governor Xylos addressed the assembled representatives. If these humans are genuine in their offer of free assistance, it could revolutionize how we approach interstellar relations.
Councillor Vax, head of planetary defense, raised a scaled hand. Governor, with respect, this could also represent a sophisticated invasion strategy. They demonstrate overwhelming force while positioning themselves as benevolent saviors. It's psychologically brilliant. But, Councillor, interjected Trade Representative Lixa, what would they gain? Kepler-7 is a small mining station with limited strategic value. If this were conquest, why not target our major trade routes or industrial centers?
The debate continued for hours, but, across the sector, the consensus was growing. Whether through genuine altruism or masterful strategy, the humans had accomplished something unprecedented. They had gained the attention, respect, and curiosity of an entire civilization in a single day. Meanwhile, aboard the human flagship Humanity's Reach, Admiral Vasquez found herself dealing with the unexpected consequences of humanity's generosity. Her communications officer approached with a stack of data tablets. Admiral, we're receiving transmission requests from dozens of Vortanian ships and stations. They all want to meet with the humans who mobilized their entire fleet for strangers. Vasquez rubbed her temples, feeling the weight of first contact protocols pressing down on her shoulders.
How many requests, Commander Hayes? 87 as of this morning, ma'am. And the number is growing exponentially. We're also detecting numerous ships changing course to intercept our position.
This was exactly the kind of attention that Fleet Command had protocols to prevent. First contact was supposed to be carefully controlled, with diplomatic teams and cultural specialists guiding every interaction.
Instead, humanity had announced its presence to an entire civilization through an act of unprecedented generosity.
Ma'am, incoming priority transmission from Earth Command, reported the communications officer.
Admiral Vasquez straightened her uniform and activated the secure channel. Fleet Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen, his expression unreadable. Admiral Vasquez, I've received your preliminary reports on the rescue operation. I have to ask, did you really deploy our entire fleet for a 43-person rescue mission?
Yes, sir. The situation required immediate action, and I felt it was better to over-respond than under-respond to humanity's first contact scenario.
Fleet Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. Admiral, you've created the largest diplomatic incident in human history.
We have alien species requesting formal contact, their government wants to establish trade relations, and, apparently 3 different Vortanian factions are arguing over who gets to host the first human embassy.
Sir, am I being relieved of command? Relieved?
Admiral, the Secretary General wants to promote you.
The entire United Earth Council is calling your actions the most successful first contact in theoretical xenodiplomacy.
They want you to stay on station and handle the follow-up negotiations. Admiral Vasquez felt a weight lift from her shoulders.
Thank you, sir. What are my orders regarding the ongoing contact requests? Handle them as you see fit. You've apparently set the tone for human-alien relations for the foreseeable future. Don't change what's working.
The transmission ended, leaving Vasquez to contemplate the magnitude of what had happened. Humanity had intended to make first contact carefully, diplomatically, with extensive preparation. Instead, they had done it through an act of simple human decency, and it had worked better than any carefully planned diplomatic mission could have. Back on mining station Kepler-7, Commander Zefik found himself at the center of a media storm. News ships from across Vortanian space arrived daily to interview the crew that had been saved by the mysterious humans.
Commander, how did it feel to watch 400 alien warships arrive to save your station? Asked reporter Nissa from the Consortium News Network.
Zefik considered his words carefully.
Reporter Nissa, it wasn't 400 warships that saved us.
It was 400 neighbors who heard someone call for help.
The phrase became the headline across Vortanian space, 400 neighbors.
It captured something essential about the human response that resonated deeply with Vortanian culture, where community support was highly valued. Dr. Sarah Kim, still aboard the station helping with medical upgrades, found herself in constant consultation with Vortanian medical professionals who traveled across the sector to observe human healing techniques. Her informal medical exchange had blossomed into an impromptu interspecies medical conference.
Dr. Kim asked Dr. Velix from the Consortium Medical Authority, your healing techniques show remarkable innovation. Would your species be willing to establish formal medical research partnerships?
Of course, Dr. Kim replied without hesitation.
Medical knowledge belongs to everyone. The more we share, the better we can help people.
Engineer Maria Rodriguez had similar experiences with Vortanian technical specialists who marveled at human engineering solutions.
Her simple upgrades to the station's systems had sparked interest from industrial engineers across the sector. Engineer Rodriguez asked Chief Designer Kithos, your atmospheric processing improvements have increased efficiency by 40%. How much would it cost to license this technology for our industrial stations? Rodriguez looked confused. License it? You don't need to license it.
I'll send you the complete specifications. Use them wherever they'll help. The concept of freely sharing technology was as revolutionary to the Vortanians as their initial rescue had been.
Across the sector, engineers began redesigning systems based on human innovations that had been freely provided. Admiral Vasquez received regular reports on these spontaneous technology and knowledge exchanges happening throughout her fleet.
Human specialists were sharing everything from medical techniques to engineering solutions to agricultural innovations with Vortanian professionals who had come to observe the famous rescue fleet. Admiral, reported Captain Santos from the Indomitable, our botanist has just revolutionized Vortanian agriculture by showing them how to optimize their soil composition.
They're projecting a 20% increase in crop yields.
And, Commander Torres reports that our communications specialists have helped them upgrade their interplanetary communication networks, added Commander Hayes. Apparently our signal compression techniques work better with their biology than their current systems.
Admiral Vasquez smiled as she watched the orbital traffic around their position.
Dozens of Vortanian ships waited patiently for their turn to dock with human vessels, not for trade negotiations or territorial discussions, but simply to meet the species that had redefined what it meant to be neighbors in the galaxy. Ma'am, incoming transmission from the Vortanian Consortium leadership, announced the communications officer. Director Kilax appeared on screen, but his demeanor was completely different from their first conversation. Gone was the suspicion and fear, replaced by what could only be described as wonder. Admiral Vasquez, our scientists estimate that the technology and knowledge your people have freely shared in the past week could advance our civilization by decades.
How can we possibly reciprocate such generosity?
The Admiral's answer came without hesitation. Director, just remember what you've learned here. When you encounter someone who needs help, remember what humans showed you.
Pass it forward. As the transmission ended, Admiral Vasquez realized that humanity had accidentally started something far more significant than first contact.
They had begun a revolution in how civilizations approached each other across the stars. 6 months after the Kepler-7 incident, the ripple effects of humanity's first contact had transformed an entire sector of space. The phrase 400 neighbors had become a common greeting among Vortanian traders, and the concept of unconditional assistance had spread far beyond their original borders. Captain Zara Okafor of the human science vessel Discovery was conducting routine stellar cartography when her communications officer detected an unfamiliar distress signal. Unlike the clear desperation of the Kepler-7 transmission, this signal was weak, intermittent, and coming from an uncharted system.
"Captain, the signal appears to be from a species we haven't encountered before," reported Lieutenant Kumar.
The universal translator is having difficulty with their language, but it's definitely a distress call. Captain Okafor studied the sensor readings. The signal originated from a region of space that showed signs of recent stellar activity, possibly a collapsed star or gravitational anomaly that had damaged ships in the area. "Signal Fleet Command and request the emergency response protocol," Okafor ordered, then paused. "Actually, Kumar, send a general broadcast to all human ships in the sector. Someone needs help, and we're going to answer the call properly."
Within hours, 18 human ships had altered course to converge on the distress signal.
Word had spread through the human fleet about the success of the Kepler-7 rescue, and Captain Okafor's call for assistance had been